Good morning, Eric.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Good.
Good. It's been a while since we've been together and doing videos. I was
Yep.
away in Houston at calculator school, and you've been out on the island
Yeah,
having
I've been
fun.
having a little fun actually, not doing any calculator work whatsoever. Okay.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I thought what we'd talk about a little bit today, what you and I spoke about earlier, was getting into a little bit about how banks make money.
Yes.
Now banks, now let's try to be clear here, right? You and I are not out here to try and beat up on the banks. That would be too easy. So we're not good doing that, are we?
No, no,
Or are
no.
we?
We're just here. No, well, we're in the sharing mode, let's say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Obviously banks are required. We need banks.
totally.
They're a very important part of the financial system. We know there's a lot of problems with the financial system. But yeah,
They're
that's
an
not
important
our,
part of our society too, right?
they are for
Yeah,
sure.
big time.
And that's not our intent, right? That's not our intent. So we want to be clear to everyone, like this is not beat up on the banks day today, right?
That's
So
right.
I'm going to share my screen for a minute,
Okay.
and we're going to take a look at something here, and hopefully this is going to come up. Tell me if you can see this okay, Eric.
I can. Yeah.
All right, so this is from the Bank of Montreal annual report for 2020. Okay,
Okay.
can you see that 2020?
Yeah.
And and look at the length of the annual report. So the financial statements for Bank of Montreal are 218 pages.
Nice. I don't think everybody's out there reading this.
No, probably not. No, there's a lot of information in there. But I'm looking at the balance sheet, and I'm going to really try and make it really simple. Okay. There is some complexity here. So, if there's any experts out there on financial statements, accountants like me who think we're being a little bit too simplistic, we acknowledge that, right? So, bear with us, right? So
For the
anyway,
purpose of a brief video, we can't go too deep anyway.
yeah, exactly, right? So, but I thought this was really cool, and hopefully you're going to think the same, is I'm going to compare basically the balance sheet of the bank to basically a person who has cash in their bank account, right? And
Yeah.
who has a house asset and a mortgage, okay?
Okay.
Right? So in this case, what I'm doing is that I'm saying, okay, look, they've got 949, this is millions, okay? These are huge numbers, right?
Yeah.
They've got 949,000 million, right? That's a big number. But for now,
Almost.
we're gonna ignore the millions, right? And we're gonna say this is $949,000, okay? So in this situation, we're going to say their total assets are $949,000. Up here, you can see they have 57,000 million, right? But we're going to say again, 57,000. So I'm not going to mention the millions anymore. So we have $57,000 in cash, okay?
Yeah.
And then here's interest-bearing deposits with the bank. So, okay, well, let's say we'll give them $65,000 in cash. You okay with that?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so we're going to give them $65,000 in cash, right? And then, they've got some investments, so we'll say, okay, they've got $65,000 in cash. They've got $235,000 in investments, okay? And then the rest of it is their house, right?
Yeah.
And so we've got basically, they've got about let's say 445 plus 91. They've got a $550,000 house. Okay.
Yep.
We're okay with that? All right.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. But now what we're going to do is we say, well, wait a minute. They got a $550,000 house, but they've got a $650,000 mortgage. Right? Like this is money that they owe depositors, right? So we're going to call that their mortgage, right?
Yeah.
And then what we're going to say, they're going to have an investment loan because they have their investments up here, right? They got $235,000 in investments. they've got an investment loan of $225,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So at the end of the day, right, they've got basically a $50,000 net worth, right? Which
Totally.
basically is their cash. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So basically in this situation, right, and I know it's a bit of a stretch, right? So I get that. However, they've got $50,000 in equity, right? Which means that they've got, like $950,000 of assets, and they've got almost $900,000 worth of liabilities, which is what we're calling the mortgage and what we're calling their investment loan. Okay.
Yeah.
And the banks out there saying, hey, Eric, you better have 20% down to buy your house, or you're going to have to get CMHC approval, right?
That's right. Where they're having a 5% deposit
Well,
of equity.
yeah, and if anything,
If that.
they're underwater on their house, right?
Totally.
They're $150,000 underwater. Like they've
Why?
got
Because
no
it's
equity.
commingled. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They've got no equity, right?
That's right.
Right. So it's just, I just find this fascinating, right? When looking at it from that perspective. But don't get me wrong, this is a big number, right? This is like, 57,000 million, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big number, right? Like I think, if we sat down, like this is probably pretty close to $1 trillion, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's, because they say like a trillion is a million, right? So, and this is almost $1 million, right? So
Yeah.
we're talking huge numbers, right? But I just found that fascinating, because these are all the deposits that people have put down, in their bank accounts, right? Which
Yeah.
the bank uses to go out and lend money, right?
That's right.
Right? They use this money, right? They don't lend their money, right? They lend our money, right?
Yeah. And
so
more.
anyways, and more, exactly. So anyways, that's the basis from what we're going to talk. But I thought this was really cool. When I looked at this, I'm like, trying to kind of compare it to, an average household, right?
Yeah.
They've
And I mean,
got
it's worth noting too, Mike, sorry to interject, but the year over year from 2019 to 2020, that's a strong growth for assets of that size, in my opinion. Yeah, they've done very well.
Yeah. And again, they've made
10%, right? Yeah.
Well, they've made, another, what would that be? That's another. Well, what we're talking here, again, like I get confused with these numbers, but we're talking billions here, right? Like this is 56 billion, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, to go from 51 to 56 at that level is impressive, actually.
Yeah. So that's $5 billion, right? In 1 year, right? So that's pretty, it's pretty good, right? So anyways, but I thought that was kind of cool, right? If you kind of look at it that way, they got, so anyways, we're going to talk about how banks make money. So we'll stop at that, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And so in order to go back, we're going to go back to basically the 80s, right? And we're not trying to we're not trying to hurt people here, right? Because obviously with some of the increases we've had lately, we're like there's probably obviously some people that are maybe a little bit worried we're going back to the 80s, right? I don't think we're going back there, so right? No. I don't think so. But
we're going to stay in a channel of interest rates, I think.
Yeah, I think so. But we're going to see some pretty significant changes, and we're going to try and emphasize the significance of that through our little calculators we're going to play around with. So this calculator, again, is a fairly easy calculator. It's from Truth Concepts. That's where I was at Calculator School. They're wonderful. Like they're just such a great group. And so just wonderful. Yeah. So Eric, we're going to use you as an example. Okay.
Okay.
Now, back in the 80s, back in the 80s, you and I were young men, like probably teenagers, right? But we, maybe heard our parents talk about, the rates, right? And back then I did do some research for this, and back then the interest rates were for a certificate of deposit or a GIC were about 12%,
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
And also loan rates were, upwards of 20% at one point, right?
Mhm.
And so most
People
of
were
us
carrying mortgages at that level. Can
yeah,
you imagine?
exactly. Yeah, lots of people lost their houses, right, during that period of time.
That's right.
But when we look at that, we're saying to ourselves, geez, that's that's 8%. The bank is making 8%, right? Because they're paying 12%, right, to you, Eric. We're going to say you have, and I'm going to take the loan. Okay, I'm going to be I'm going to borrow your money, right? So they're paying you in this case, 12%, and they're charging me 20%, right? And so people said, well, that's 8%, right? And that's where we get confused, right? We talked about before, the human brain is not wired, right, for math, right? Like when it comes to financial things, right, which we've learned as well, right? It's taken us years, right, to kind of get over those hurdles. So we're going to say, okay, we're going to say that their cost is 12%, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to charge 20, right? Now we need to make this the end, and we're going to make this annual, right?
Yeah.
I guess we put it at the beginning. I don't know if we have to do it at the end, but anyways, and we're going to do this for 1 year, right? Okay. Yeah. And that is 66.67%. What do you mean, Eric? How could that be? Well, I thought it was 8%.
The relational value is what people don't see, right?
Yeah, yeah. So at that point in time, the bank is making 66.67%.
Mm-hmm.
If they were using, all day long. Now, if they were using their money, so let's just say it's $100, it's $100 loan, right? Okay, and and so I've got to give back 120, right, back to them, right? Okay, well then there you go. It's 20%, right? Like that's what, if they were using their money and they're charging out 20%, that's 20%, right? But that's not what they're doing, right? You're depositing $100. I'm taking that $100, and they're going to give you 12, and they're going to charge me 20, right? That's 66.67%.
Yeah.
Now, what helped me when I was going through this myself, when I first went to calculus a few years ago, is that, they're kind of saying, hey, let's just say we're at the hardware store, and it costs me, $12, to buy a hammer, and I send it to you, sell it to you, Eric, because you're building a house or something, for $20, right? That's a 66% markup, right? Yeah. People can, and all they're doing is they're marking up money, right?
Totally.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%. But I know that's not the end of the story, Mike.
It's not. It's never the end of the story. Right? It's never the end of the story. So here we go. We go blasting along, and let's say we get we go a little bit farther down the road, and the banks were in trouble because they were lots of people are defaulting on their loans, right? And so what the government's decided to do, they said, okay, well, you know what, in the 90s, this was kind of in the mid to late 90s, they said, we're going to lower interest rates, right? And we've been in that low interest rate environment for a long time now, right? Yeah. So I again did my research, and the 5-year GIC rate is okay. I'm going to just delete it all because I don't want to give out all the
good stuff,
the good stuff right off the hop here. So we're going to say, okay, they lowered rates down to 5%, right? So now, Eric, all they're going to give you, and can you imagine what happened to all those people that were retired during that time period, and they were making 12% on their money, and then now they're making 5%.
Yeah, 10% GICs. Now they're down to,
now it's 5%, right?
2.25 even, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and around this time, Walmart was really getting a lot of traction, and Walmart just got a whole bunch of new Walmart greeters.
That's right. Overnight.
Yeah, because now my savings, I was living on at 12%. Now I'm getting 5%. Time to go back to work, right? So that's just, that's shocking to me. So let's just keep the same relation, right? So we're going to say with the 8%, right? So we're going to go 8%. And so we're going to say, okay, well then a loan has to be 13%, right? So of course, right, the bank, rate to go down, the bank's got to make less money, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense, right? Bank's going to make, wait a minute. They're making 160%.
Yeah.
Right? Same thing, right? Now my hammers are costing me $5 and now I'm selling them for 13, right?
Yeah.
And then you're saying, well, that just can't make sense, right? That just can't make sense. They're lowering interest rates and the banks are making more money. This almost bailed out the banks overnight.
Yeah.
By them lowering rates. And everybody thinks that, you know, the banks are suffering.
And not only that, Mike, the absolute volume of borrowing more than doubled. Actually, much more than that, actually, in the last 2 years. So that percentage multiplied many, many times.
Well, yeah. And so, you know, and so I'm going to go to another basic calculator, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring this up here. So in that other transaction, right? So, and this will kind of bring it together for people, right? So in that other transaction, we're saying, hey, we had $12, right? So their cost was $12, right? So, so how many $12 transactions? Like, so if I have $12, right, accessible to me, how many $5 transactions can I do, right? So you go 12, right? And you divided that by 5, right?
Yeah.
Right, equals, okay, this is not working very well. So, yeah, 12 divided by 5 equals 2.4,
yeah.
right?
Okay.
Yeah. So if I go 2.4, so I'm going to go clear, right? If I go 2.4, right?
Yeah.
No, it's not let me do 2.4. I'll do here 2.4 times, right? 66.67, which was the percentage rate that we had, right, on the before, right? Okay, what do we got? 160%?
Yeah.
Right?
There you go.
So now they can do that transaction 3 times, right? Now, if you go into how banks actually work, right? And we won't get too far into that, but you know, the whole thing, maybe people have heard about fractional reserve lending. There's been stats.
People are hearing about it. More and more.
They are. But what people, you know, don't necessarily, maybe not necessarily realize is that the banks have rules, and there's a great example where, okay, Eric, we're gonna say you're building a house, right? Again, you know, you're very busy building your house, right? And I'm your contractor, right?
Yeah.
And I want $5,000 down payment, right? So you give me the $5,000, okay? All right.
Yeah.
Now and you've taken out a loan, let's say, for that $5,000, right, to give to me, right? Well, if I go back over to the bank, right, I deposit that. Well, they can lend that money out again, right? Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And so then, you know, so let's just say I'm buying, you know, in this case, hammers, right, or tools that I need for the job, right? And he banks at the same place, right? Well, I write him a check for $5,000. Well, then they can lend it out again.
And
so basically, you know, they say the stats are anywhere between 5 to 10 times they could do the same transaction
on the same dollar bill.
Yeah, 5 to 8 times, right? So really, we take 5 to 8 and multiply it by 160%. Banking's a pretty good business, eh?
Yeah. So
pretty good gig.
Inflation is a big topic right now, Mike, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you see inflation tying in with this? Do you see a strong relationship between all the lending that's gone on, the interest rates, etc.?
Yeah, well, I do, obviously, right? Because, you know, and again, which I didn't understand, you know, inflation is, you know, because people think inflation is rising prices, right?
Yeah.
And rising prices is the symptom of inflation, right?
Exactly.
Inflation is really related to the supply of money, right?
Yeah.
Right. So the more money that's out there, the less valuable it is, and so therefore prices rise. And I remember this great example, going back into Roman times, and what they would do is they had gold coins, right?
That's right.
And what would happen is people would shave off bits of gold coins and make another gold coin, right? Because, and that's basically increasing the supply of money, right?
Yeah.
Because out of one gold coin, I've got two coins, right?
Yeah.
And what would happen is you would go to the vendor and, would say you'd go buy a chicken or whatever they're buying down there, and you give them your new gold coin, and the vendor would compare the size of one of their other gold coins to the one that you're giving them, and they're like, no,
I want two.
I want two, right? Well, there
Yeah.
you go. Your price has just gone up, right? So
Totally.
yeah, no, there's the printing of money and the rest of it has created a lot of issues with inflation. But getting back to this real quick, right, is so let's just go down now, and let's just say, now I'm going to delete everything, right? But this is really going to pop, I think, for people, is in this low interest rate environment, right? Okay, what are they paying on savings? Almost nothing, right?
Around 1%, give or take.
Yeah, so let's just say 1%, right?
Yeah.
Well, if I lend that out, let's say in a mortgage, right? Mortgage rates are going up. So let's say that's 3%, right? So that's what they're getting, right? In terms of income.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. There's 2%, right? Now interest rates just went up by 1%, right? So let's just say we're at 4%. Well, what happened? Right?
Yeah.
Because
you've got to adjust the 1% a little bit.
Yeah, we can adjust the 1% a little bit, but but those rates aren't going up quite as fast, right?
Correct. Yeah. So maybe 1.5. Let's say.
Yeah. So even 1.5, right?
Yeah.
Right. 1.5, right? Well, now it's actually gone down, right?
Yeah.
But it really illustrates that, when they're almost paying nothing, or even 0.5%, right? If you really look at savings, right? Like at 0.5%, a 4% loan, that's 700%.
And you add to that the fractional reserve element to it.
Yeah.
The factoring, the multiplication of everything.
Yeah.
And that's really how cash is created. It is through lending. Boom, but there's a balance in your account from a loan.
Right.
Digital. Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty cool.
That's great.
Anyways, yeah. And I think that, obviously people can kind of reach out to us and talk to us how, we have financial tools that really facilitate the use of leverage, right?
Yeah.
In a responsible way. And we can show people, yeah. And we show people, that they can kind of be like the banks and they can get into the business of banking.
Totally. We look forward to helping. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking some time on a Saturday to spend time with me, Eric. I always enjoy it.
My
Appreciate
pleasure,
it.
man. Great topic today. Great topic.
Yeah. And we'll talk again soon.
Sounds great.
Okay. Bye-bye.